Okay, we are live. Hey, Dr. Tiff.
Hey, Doc, what's new?
Every cell and tissue in my body.
Fair enough. Always regenerating.
Yes. So welcome back, everyone. So you guys might have seen me go live on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I go live with a friend of mine, Aaron James, and we had a gut bacteria conversation. He's a hypnotherapist.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we do lives, but we have sort of a different spin on the health aspect with hypnotherapy. So I thought this would be good to actually piggyback off of that gut bacteria conversation with you and I.
Yeah. What does he just take? Does he just work on the mindset piece of things, like with the hypnotherapy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he's straight hypnotherapy. Yeah, that's all he does is straight hypnotherapy for people. Yep, exactly. So we come on and we have conversations surrounding health, and then we do some hypnotherapy stuff. So yeah, in this conversation here, just to capitalize on, we're going to talk about gut bacteria, but I want to look at the connection between gut bacteria, weight loss, weight gain, even metabolism. This 20 minutes isn't even long enough probably for us for this.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of discuss like how does the gut biome control metabolism and cravings and fat storage. And one of the things that in the last call I did with Aaron James was, we talked about how there's more neuronal connections inside your gut than there is your spinal cord. And we're talking about, it's called the enteric nervous system. The gut is being called a second brain, and some people are speculating that the gut has more intelligence than the brain does. And so I think that's why this conversation is so important and the connection. So I just want to kind of start off with that, Doc. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that honestly is news to me in terms of the neural network in there. I mean, I've never heard that. I have heard the gut be called the second brain, but I didn't realize that there was so much similarity to like the central nervous system. But I don't know if you've read The Body Keeps the Score.
Yep.
The book, right? So just talking about how our body is like constantly just reacting to the stress that we put it under, the foods that we eat, the exposure to environment, just all the information. And our body stores all that. It has a really good memory. So I do believe, it's like when little kids get nervous and they get upset tummies, or we, even as adults, I do think our gut tends to tell us if there's disruption in life. So I think that's, the correlation makes sense to me for sure.
Yep. Yeah. There's so many things that we don't know about the gut. And there's so many things that we're just learning. For example, many people don't know, but your digestive system wouldn't function without gut bacteria. It is the reason we actually digest food. And then sometimes people kind of think like, we almost like, hey, my body knows what it's doing. It does. But without these symbiotic relationships, it wouldn't actually digest food. And so the bacteria, these are things that have been around for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, much longer on this planet than we have. And so, there's certain bacteria that produce enzymes, and they help balance blood sugars. They can boost your metabolism. But when your gut is out of balance, it can absolutely go haywire.
Yeah, the opposite direction. Well, and I think we look at people that have chronic constipation or chronic GI issues, and you look at the quality of what they're eating or the fiber intake. And I think you look at, the fact that our small intestine, the enzymes in the small intestine don't break down fiber. That's what helps us stay regular and moves things through the digestive tract and the colon. And so I think if we're not eating really whole food, fiber rich grains and veggies and fruits and the things that help to not only feed the bacteria, but also to regulate digestion because of the fiber intake and the blood sugar regulation, then I think it causes all kinds of issues. If, we're not regular from a bowel movement standpoint, that again is our body talking to us. We should be regular. If we're getting the nutrients we need and the hydration we need and all the things, there shouldn't be disruption to that. So again, I think our gut gives us a lot of information about our lifestyle.
That's for sure. So what we could talk about here is with you and I is what harms the gut bacteria and then what supports it. It might be a really good conversation because there's so much misinformation and unknown information. And so one of the kind of the first things I'll start with is I want to say that a lot of people from cravings, a lot of people wonder, they're like trying to get over their cravings. And one of the things I noticed is that when you crave sugar or carbs, it could be a strong sign that your gut bacteria are calling the shots, not you. Sugar loving bugs like Candida or any bad bacteria, they release chemicals that demand more sugar. And so what happens is, I've mentioned this in some of my other conversations, but it's called the Herxheimer reaction. When you do something to harm the bad gut bacteria, they retaliate. They release neurotoxins, they release poisons to make you think. For example, you go for a walk or you go work out and you get a lot of oxygen into your system. Bad gut bacteria hate that. And so they'll literally poison you to make you feel bad. And so it's important to kind of see, okay, what actually feeds the bad gut bacteria. So a few things we know: sugar, refined sugar is like, it's just, that's the thing they want the most. So when you pull sugar out, is one of the things I do with people for 40 days. We pull all sugars, bread, cereal, rice, pastas. We pull all that out, including alcohol. And people have a hard time. They have headaches and all kinds of stuff. Within about the second week, they feel better, but they'll start saying, "Oh, I'm just craving some carbs." And what I let them know is your gut bacteria are literally sending signals through your spinal cord to your brain to tell you that you want sugar. So are you calling the shots or is someone else calling the shots?
Yeah. Well, I think we see that a lot with fasting, even if it's for spiritual reasons and people are doing it and they're really committed to it. It's like that first few days is brutal, but then your body is very intuitive and it's very smart and it starts to downregulate those hunger signals and it starts to remind itself it has plenty of fuel. We can go up to 50 days without food. So, we can make it. It's not fun and it can be definitely a sacrifice. But I think like you said, it's like we get used to the sugar, we get used to the processed foods, we get used to volume and different things in our overall daily choices. And when we remove that, that memory is still there. And it's like, wait, I'm missing something. It's like bees on honey. But you got to push through to the other side. Like you said, after the first 2 weeks, then it starts to get fuel from other sources. So.
Yep. And so I think most people understand, what's happening with the sugars, I believe. I think most people don't necessarily, they kind of have an idea, but all you're doing is truly feeding a species of bacteria that wants you slow, wants you sick, and wants you as a host. There's no way to say it. They're really not symbiotic, so you have, and by the way, one of the worst things about it is that if that bad gut bacteria takes over the good gut bacteria, I can speak from experience, is you no longer digest food for you digest food for them. So I experienced an illness for almost a year and a half where that was happening, and I wasn't getting my fuel. I was becoming malnourished, and they were actually growing,
thriving. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and I think too, the only sugar that can cross the blood-brain barrier is glucose. So our brain does prefer that sugar. And when we remove it, there's also a learning curve there of what is your body going to use. That's why I think, to your point, people feel lethargic, people have brain fog, people feel lightheaded, because your brain is being starved of the sugar that it wants to function until you become fat adapted potentially, or I don't know what exactly your process is with that. But, you see that with like ketogenic diets, right? Where you have to go through that process of starving the brain and the mind, or the brain and the body, of glucose until it starts creating ketones, which the brain also can thrive on. But yeah, when you're in that middle ground, the messy middle, right, where you don't have the carbs, but you're not quite using the fat, that's the bummer.
Yeah.
That's the bummer.
Exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that. That is literally the secret behind what I do in the Fast 40. Is we have a whole system of literally switching the brain away from sugar and over to truly utilizing those fats. And of course, it's going to use those glucoses. But we notice when that happens, all of a sudden, a lot of those cravings go away. But I still see the gut bacteria influencing people's, and people's decisions. So yeah, that's a really good point. One of the areas that I think that people don't know is the effect of artificial sweeteners on gut health. And I think you probably, I've been seeing this for almost 10 years now, the promotion of artificial sweeteners. And like we're talking about sucralose, aspartame, saccharin. So people go, oh, they're calorie free. And, well, that's a whole nother conversation. Calories are not your enemy, but there's many studies that show that they disrupt your gut biome. And many of the artificial sweeteners are indigestible by your system. And so that gut imbalance eventually can lead to glucose intolerance for people who aren't even sugar. They're literally seeing you have glucose intolerance from literally eating artificial sweeteners. So that's really interesting.
You would compare that, I think, to like trans fats, where food manufacturers are creating a fat that looks like an unsaturated fat, and they can report that potentially on a food label, low saturated fat intake, but it acts in the body like a saturated fat. So now actually you do have to report on food labels how much has trans fat, poly, unsaturated, all the things. But for a long time, you could just put fat or unsaturated fat, and the public was being deceived by what they were actually consuming. And I think that's happened a little bit with the artificial sweeteners of like 0 calorie sweetener and this baking, you're going to bake brownies and you can use this Splenda brown sugar mix. But again, I think our body responds in many ways to it like regular sugar. So we still get some of that blood sugar spike. And I don't know, all the science behind it, but I've definitely, I would agree. I mean, you can just feel it. I'll grab a Diet Dr. Pepper at a movie or like whatever. And it's like, I can tell my body thinks I'm having sugar. Because I just don't drink that stuff, but I do think it does impact people the same way sugar does.
Yeah, great. You said it perfectly, because so we're saying that if it disrupts your gut biome, that can lead to glucose intolerance, and then the glucose intolerance leads to like higher insulin levels. So you have more fat storage, metabolic slowdown, and especially around the belly. So, and you said it perfectly. Artificial sweeteners confuse your brain. That's what they're there to do. By the way, you artificially think it's sweet.
That's right.
And your taste buds, so basically your taste buds say it's sweet, but you get no calories. And think about the effect of that. That alone, your taste buds feel sweet, but you get no calories, which basically increases your hunger. So it leads to you eating more later. And then they've even seen that some artificial sweeteners actually just straight damage the intestinal lining. And so then people wonder how they got leaky gut, or they're inflamed, or there's immune dysfunction. So like, I mean, I think if you're listening to this, take this seriously, because what happens is when new trends come out, this is what I've watched over the last, you've probably seen this too, last 20 years, a new trend comes out, artificial sweeteners, for example, people jump on it. And then, what happens is about 10 years later, we start going, oh crap, this has caused disease. This is what's been happening. So a lot of those diet products are producing the exact opposite effect of what people think that it's supposed to do.
And I would argue that's true with all of these low carb, keto, carb balanced tortillas and breads and cereals and all, because the fiber, which is what our gut also thrives on, right? Because that's how it gets the bulk of our stool, and that's how it keeps blood sugar moderated, and that's how it keeps us regular. The fiber in these low carb products is not natural dietary fiber. So they're infusing or manufacturing fiber that is not, in my opinion, being processed the same way. So you think you're getting a high fiber. And I mean, we only need about 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day, which most Americans are getting 7 grams. So we are definitely deficient, but some of those tortillas have like 20 grams of fiber in them. And that's also overkill. And I think if we eat too much fiber, it can have the opposite effect it's supposed to have. In fact, you can eat, I think, too much and it blocks the colon and it disrupts digestion. And then you have things like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, whereas like you're not emptying consistently enough. So bacteria is actually growing in there and disrupting. So I think we just have to, more is not always better. And I think you latch on, like you said, the sugars or the fiber, the whatever. And then we're like, oh, more. I need more fiber. And then you get too much potentially.
So that's a good lead into the second sort of half of this call. Let's talk about what are the real natural ways to rebalance your gut biome and restore internal harmony, because you're when your gut is balanced, everything changes. Your mood changes. I can attest, and I've said this in a few of our lives with other people, that when my gut was imbalanced and I was dying, I wanted to kill myself. I literally had suicidal thoughts. And I was not someone who ever believed that the gut bacteria had that kind of power. They do. They literally tell your brain how to feel today if they were overgrown. So your energy changes, weight changes, immune system changes. It affects everything. So let's go through a few tips here, and I'll just go through each one, and you can kind of play off this with me. One, this is a tip that sounds funny, but it's eat the rainbow. Eat different colors, because phytonutrients feed different strains of good bacteria. And, this would be the goal. If you could eat 30 plus different plant foods, and I'm including fruits, veggies, herbs, nuts, and seeds, what you're trying to do is produce gut diversity. So that would be the first tip.
Well, I mean, I've definitely sort of eat the rainbow, make sure your plate is colorful and that all of the vitamins and minerals are more prevalent in different food choices. And I think that people do get in a rut of eating the same things. And again, to your point, it may not be different calories or macros or whatever, but it's just a variety of micronutrients. The spectrum of that needs to also be included, and not just like, oh, I'm hitting my protein or I'm getting carbs in or I'm getting fruit. It's like to vary it so that you get the benefit of all of the different types of, like you said, vitamins, minerals, micronutrient density.
Yeah. I wonder, have you or experimented with microgreens?
I have not. I mean, I eat a lot of veg, and I try to get, the mixed greens, and I use fresh herbs, and I'll do some of that, but I've never gotten into the details of which leafy greens have what in them. But, again, I think just being mindful when you shop of like, try a new veggie every week, or grab, something else to throw on your salad or on in a veggie wrap or whatever, just things that like you can kind of hide them to in a smoothie if you don't love vegetables, throw them into your protein shake. So
yeah, absolutely. Oh, good. So let's see. So second thing here then would be, most people are aware of probiotic. I'm going to tell whoever's listening to this, whoever wants to hear this, I spent over $7,500 when I was really sick on probiotic pills, and it did absolutely nothing. And I was buying the stuff I could get, like that, the good stuff. Now, I'm not talking about going to Whole Foods and get what they have. It did almost nothing. So one of the areas is prebiotics. Prebiotics are the food that your gut bacteria actually eat, right? And so garlic, onions, leeks, even asparagus, Jerusalem artichokes, dandelion greens, these feed good gut bacteria. And so I basically stopped all that stuff and started eating garlic and onions, and saw a massive change.
That's interesting. I don't cook with a lot of garlic. Now, I do love onions, and I kind of saute onions almost in every dish because I feel like it gives it good flavor. But, I think that's an easy swap for people, is just throwing a little bit of garlic or roasting some and chopping up, throw it in your pasta, throw it on your stir fry.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Have you seen whether it matters if it's like raw versus cooked versus roasted, or is there a difference in how you eat it?
There's a big difference. Now, if you're just trying to rebuild your gut bacteria, you can cook it. This is a whole different conversation, Doc, but if you have parasites, you want to eat it raw. And it is quite horrific to eat raw, but you want to kill your parasites.
I cannot imagine.
I've done it. There's ways to do it, but we'll go with that another one. But yes, raw, if you have parasites, they cannot stand garlic. It'll flush out of your system. So but it also is terrible for you too. But having that much raw
Worth
garlic, but
it.
it works.
It's worth
It works.
it.
It's worth it. Exactly. So third thing I want to add in here is add fermented foods in. And this is one of my favorite things to do. Living probiotics, not in a pill or a bottle. So you start small and add it in, but sauerkraut, kimchi, some people like kefir and even plain yogurt with no sugar, miso actually, kombucha. If you do these things right. So I grow my own kombucha. I do not recommend store-bought kombucha. Turn the bottle over and look at it and look at how much freaking sugar is in there.
Yeah, they are high.
Yeah, you got to understand that when you make these things, you need sugar to make the bacteria eat sugar. But it's that the companies who make these kombuchas pull it out too soon, and they do it because sugar is left in, so the average public will drink this stuff. So I get down to literally it's almost an acidic pH where there's literally no sugar, and I'll drink it there, and I'm getting tons of probiotics with no sugar. So those are big, but kimchi, sauerkraut, add it to your food. That is what rebuilt my gut bacteria was so what I was doing in the evening was creating a bone broth and putting kimchi inside. And it's delicious. Bone broth kimchi, very, very flavorful. And drink it and eat it at night, and you will rebuild your gut bacteria. You will save thousands of dollars than trying to buy pills.
Yeah. And that's such a taste, a palate thing. Like I do not like any of those foods, but to your point, it's like if it's serving a purpose. But yeah, it's an acquired taste for sure. Now kombucha, I could probably do. Miso I like, but the sauerkraut and the kimchi and the things like it's a struggle for me. So that's a good idea to put it in something where you're masking the acidity of it that it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to say this to you, Doc, is I personally, I couldn't eat those things separate, like kimchi and sauerkraut. I don't like them by themselves. I don't think they were intended to be by themselves. The moment I put it in bone broth, I was like, this is delicious. I want to put kimchi inside my tacos. I was like, this is delicious. They're meant to be, they're so flavorful for your foods. Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. So let's do another tip before we get off here.
Okay.
Stress. Chronic stress releases cortisol, and that can thin your gut lining, alter gut bacteria, and really trigger inflammation. And so that's one of the reasons we come on and I was talking about breath work and hypnotherapy, getting sun, grounding, laughter. All these things are very, very important, but chronic stress, not letting emotions pass through you, and storing emotions will disrupt gut bacteria.
Yeah, I think we've seen this with almost everything we've talked about. Like that stress variable can be so disruptive to weight loss, to recovery, to the gut microbiome, to muscle maintenance. Like if we as a culture, and it's easier said than done, but can just audit what is causing the stress. I think for some people, they don't even know really what's causing it. They could guess that it's work or it's kids or relationships or whatever, frustrations with your body. But I think if you really do a deep dive, it might reveal some ways that you can address that stress. And, again, to your point, it can be a positive snowball effect.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many, that's a whole topic that we could dive into alone, but I think most people don't realize that stress affects your gut bacteria.
Yeah.
And, that's a big deal. That's huge. So of course getting sunshine, laughter, letting yourself even, meditate. So there's so many things we can go with. That's probably a whole other conversation there.
No, that's a good topic. I think we could just talk about effective stress management sometime, because I think, and I think people kind of poo-poo on that now because everybody tells you manage your stress, but do we have some like really tangible suggestions would be?
I think that'd be a great topic. I think that'd be a phenomenal topic because 80% of all doctor's visits in America are due to stress. That's a medical fact. But when was the last time you went to your doctor and they addressed your stress?
Yeah.
Never.
No, they usually just add more stress.
Yeah. And in all fairness, they're not given tools. They went to a school that was sponsored by pharmaceutical companies that do not want you to know how to manage stress.
Yeah.
So they don't have many ways to do this. And now the few of the docs that have sort of gone, man, I'm not really helping anyone. They've sort of started waking up and going, I probably should like treat not just the symptom, but the person themselves. And what doctors have done that are phenomenal. So anyway, any other last thoughts on this gut bacteria conversation?
No, I think, like you said, just being aware of the power of it is good motivation. And, maybe people will be more aware just as they're eating things to integrate in, but little stuff can make a big difference. So
that's true. This is awesome. I think this is such powerful conversation. Thanks for being on with me, Doc.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're going to be on your hosting next time. And I love that idea of like actual chronic like stress management stuff. That'd be incredible. We could probably do a whole series on that.
Yeah, let's plan on that.
All right, cool. I'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right, bye-bye.